92.7.
It's exactly 10 minutes after 6 p.m. here on the 3FM Drive with Trigmatic and DJ Abia. Listening to Cheerleader by OMI or OMI. We're still throwing back because, I mean, those were the golden years of music. I still don't fancy any of these new tunes, but yeah, I have to play them because of where I find myself. And when I say it, the Gen Zs come at me, but I mean, truth is truth. You can't hide. We can't hide it. Good evening once again. You're logged into the 3FM Drive. This is where culture actually meets conversation and where the sounds become strategy. Today we step beyond the music and we interrogate the machinery behind the movement. Because in an era where algorithms are the gatekeepers and where data is now the new currency, the question is no longer who is making the noise, but who is behind, who is being discovered, who is distributed, who is the loudest, and ultimately sustained. And when you look across the continent from Accra to Lagos and beyond, sorry that I'm using two West African countries, but yeah, this is where we are. African music has transcended borders and evolved over regional expression into a global force. I mean, back then, you go to nightclubs, even in nightclubs within the cities, African cities, and you hardly hear African music. It was all about hip-hop, a bit of R&B, reggae some of the times, and when they want to drive you away, they play some love songs. And but that has changed because from time to time, not too long ago, when I was in Uganda, people were playing West African Afrobeats and East African songs. You know, when you go to festivals like Blanket and Wine, they play lots of African music. People wait for hours and hours, enjoy themselves. Headline artist is an African artist. You know, look at Afro Nation in Portugal, and the headline artist becomes an African artist. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And Davido just performed at Coachella. You know, that's a big deal. These were things that we were not seeing. And this evening, I am going to have a conversation. I still think that she is a major gatekeeper. She's not an algorithm, but she is a gatekeeper. And she is my guest this evening. She operates at the intersection of culture, technology, and artist empowerment. She's like the Virgil Abloh of music, I must say. And she's helping to redefine how emerging voices are amplified, you know, in a very saturated digital landscape. Representing one of the most influential discovery platforms for the next generation. In fact, in Ghana, I think, well, I'm forced to think it's the most used platform. One, because people don't have to pay. I don't know if now they are paying, but people don't have to pay. And it's easier to upload your songs on there. She represents one of the most influential discovery platforms, like I said, AudioMac. I'm joined by a woman whose work sits on the pulse of global music consumption. Not just global music, but especially Africa, the Middle East, North Africa, and the likes. In fact, it's a pleasure to welcome Charlotte Bwana. I hope I mentioned the name right.
Yes.
To the 3FM Drive. Charlotte, you're welcome and good evening.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Which country do you come from?
Kenya.
Oh, you're Kenyan.
I was born in Kenya, yes.
I think Kenyans are like Ghanaians. I think.
Is it?
Yes.
Tell me why.
We have similar ways of doing things, but just like Kenyans are a bit hotter. Like they are more aggressive.
Yeah, I feel like we're both very chill and humble.
I agree.
But
I agree.
Kenyans are a little bit straight to the point.
True.
So Ghanaians will be like, please, can I? But, Kenyans are going to be like, I want.
That's true.
But it's not like in a in a disrespectful way. You know,
Sure.
it's just like they're more just straightforward. Let's
Straightforward.
get to the point. But happy people at the end of the day once the work is done.
Wow, that's so true. That's actually where I was driving to. And a big shout out to my friend Fila Tuju, who is also a Kenyan, a very good friend of mine. But Charlotte, for listeners who may not fully understand my plenty talk from the beginning, what exactly do you do? I know, I've said it, but maybe in plain words, what do you do? Maybe we can take the conversation from there.
I do loads of things, but I have a title that says I'm the vice president at Audiomac for Europe, Africa, Middle East, and North Africa. So that's like half the continent.
Yeah.
But what I do on a day-to-day is from the bottom to the top. Could be partnerships, could be revenue generation, talking to policymakers, talking to banks, talking to telcos, and then I could also just be talking to an artist about their new song that they are forcing down my throat and they want me to listen to. And I could be talking to my team about the next artist that we want to work with, the artist that they've discovered, whom do they want us to amplify and why, and talking about different markets and traveling and seeing different.
Wow, that makes my next question a very good one, I think, because I've been wanting to ask this question. Knowing that you spent a lot of time working closely with African markets, what excites you about the continent right now?
Everything, but like particularly to music.
To music.
I think it's in the experiment. It's in how we've embraced our music so much, and I do have to say that we've always embraced African music from my perspective, right? If you think about even way before streaming and all that, I grew up listening to African music, and I can mention, Willie Longomba, I can mention Kofi Olomide, I can mention Miriam Makeba, Brenda Fassie. I grew up listening to African music, and a lot of people grew up listening to African music. At that time, it was like Lingala music and stuff like that. So that was like the nascent stages of us consuming our own music, right? And then you think about the era of Two-Face Idibia, P-Square, when Davido and Wizkid came out, and they would be like in South Africa shooting music videos. They would be like getting booked in Kenya. Before they took over globally, they first took over continentally, right? So I think the continent has always been listening to African music, and I think the difference between then and now is only internet access, smartphone penetration, and accessibility to music, right? I think that back then music was such a luxury. That's why when you talked about, we only heard hip hop and R&B and stuff like that. It was largely driven by media and and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think the demand from the audience and from the consumer, there was always demand for African music. And so you'd see David is getting booked in Nairobi. People are going to show up. P-Square in Nairobi. People are going to show up. Flavor had a huge song, I think. It was called No Baby or something like that at that time. So I think the difference now is just there's more democratization, if I do say so. So there's, you call me a gatekeeper, but there's less gatekeeping.
Yeah, that's true.
if I do say so. So what I'm excited about is that independence, is that experiments with sound. I'm excited about how we're now even seeing more collaborations than ever.
True.
Back then it was such a big deal to see Diamond and Davido on a track, and it was like, this is, but now collaborations are like, a piece of cake, when we're seeing them more and more and over again, and I'm excited for people to also discover more than Afrobeats, more than Amapiano. Now it's like, you can figure out what's being played in Senegal and what they're singing out there, whatever it is, like Fally Ipupa just dropped an album, and it just became the biggest #1 album in France. And he's the first African artist to go #1 in France with this new album. So I'm super excited for people to discover more than I think we've got a lot of like music to offer. We've got a lot of culture to offer. We've got a lot of different sounds to offer. We're also just experimenting. People are also borrowing from our sound now, so there's also that.
Wow, beautifully said. And, you sort of really expanded it for me. It makes me want to take a lot of my questions out and zone in. We keep saying Afrobeats to the world. I've said it a lot of times. I mean, when we're all excited or when there's a big feat by any of the African artists, we go like, po, 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 Afrobeat to the world. And everybody's excited about it. From where you sit and from the data, you probably maybe once or twice, because I know at the VP level, you may not always delve into the data that comes in. But from where you sit, from the data and the experience, do you think we're truly global or we're still emerging?
I think there's a lot to celebrate. But at the same time, we're only just scratching the surface, right? And two truths can exist, right?
Yeah.
So it could be true that a lot of people are listening to African music, but it's also true that a lot of people are not listening to African music. And the latter is way truer than the former, just because there's a lot of people in the world, 7.5, now we might be even 8.5 billion people, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it, there's a lot more people still in the discovery journey. And I always have to remind people that it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And so for us to be here where we are today, where we've got Tyler performing at All Points East and Uncle Waffles at Wireless Festivals, and you just mentioned Davido at Coachella. But you see how you can count them in one hand?
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you think about it, if you can still count it, then there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Wow. I always stand with this opinion, but a lot of people fight me. So I'm happy that it's come from you. No, because I tend to move around a lot, and anytime I find myself within circles where a lot of people operate within the music space, and a lot of time in the back end. So they get to see numbers, and like they always think that, oh no, you guys are working, but we need to do this, we need to do that. And when I come back home and I'm telling the guys, oh, we need to do more than we're doing, there needs to be that drive. People think, no, don't come and tell us.
But like I said, I think
there's a lot to celebrate.
There's a lot to celebrate as
agree.
well, and
I
I
agree.
think that it's good to pause in moments and be proud and be happy. And for a lot of people, like before maybe 3-4 years ago, I remember very well, like there was a time that it was just like If by Davido, Joanna, who sang that? I forget the name. Drogba, I think.
Yes.
Was it Drogba?
Yeah. Are you talking about
Why do you mean like
Joanna?
Jo? Yeah.
DJ Abiam, who did that song? You need to help us.
Yeah, Afrobeat. Thank
yes.
you. But yeah, so there was a time that Joanna and Bwana Boy had just dropped African Giant, I believe. And those were the only songs that were playing in like the malls in Atlanta, in New York and stuff like that. But now you're walking around, you hear Tyler, you hear Thames, you hear Adekunle Gold, you hear, there's just a lot more people. And then there's a whole different, and I think there's a whole different crowd that's like I said, Fally Ipupa just went #1, and he's African. And he's selling out a stadium. He sold out a stadium in France, Stade de France, which is 90,000 people, and he sold out 2 nights.
Wow.
So that's 180,000 people. That's star power right there, right? And now you can count more people in terms of like what they're doing, from selling the O2 to the Madison Square Garden. You know, Asake has done that. You're talking about like, you know, Tyler performing in Japan, in India, and all these other places, and, you know, and I think that those are things that you pose and you celebrate. So maybe there are a few people, but they're doing a lot of things. Do you get what I mean?
True. I agree with that. And I don't know, I think maybe it would be a good time to play the videos if because you mentioned it. You know,
I'm a fan.
Let's do that. At this point, we're gonna go for a quick commercial break. It's Davido with If on The Drive. Keep it locked. I'll be right back.
If I tell you, say I love you. Oh.
I had to do this for my guest. I'm in the studio with Charlotte. Can I call you Sha?
Yeah, a lot of people call me Sha.
Oh, yeah. I'm here with Sha. We're having a great conversation. She actually is the VP at Audio Mac, Europe, the Middle East, North Africa. The list goes on and on. She's a great person. I've seen that. I saw that you're actually on the billboard. I don't know if it was the cover.
The Global Power Player?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you're on the cover.
So I was just, that's not the cover of Billboard.
Okay,
that's just the artwork they provide for you when they basically Billboard handpicks a few individuals that they think are pushing music globally and not just like within regions. And so I was lucky enough to be named a Billboard Global Power Player.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You know, people like Don Jazzy, that also, you know, with Arista and Rema, and he's doing an amazing work. And for me, it's like being named alongside Don Jazzy. That's great honor, as well as other individuals that are doing amazing. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you one more question that has to do with artists. Also because I'm an artist. A lot of artists chase numbers. We love numbers. Streams, followers, fans. But I want to understand, what are the metrics that actually matter to platforms like Audiomack?
I don't think numbers matter to us, right? Because we are essentially there to make sure that you get the numbers, you get the streams, you get the followers, whatever the case may be. So I think the data matters more to the artist than to us, the platform. For us, you know, as long as you're making good music and it's you know, well produced, well mixed, well mastered, it's a good song, then we're happy to support and make sure you're on the playlist, make sure you're on the covers, make sure that you're getting the support that you require for us to for your career to grow. We have tools that enable you to understand your data. If you put out an album, you can go back on Audiomack and check, okay, who's listening to my album? And it tells you like the specific location. It tells you like, it could tell you like, okay, most of your streams come from Ghana, and they come from Accra or Kumasi, and most of them also come from maybe the UK, and maybe the third location would be, you know, a random place like France. You don't know, right? But if you check the data, then you know. It could tell you like most of your listeners are female or male. It could tell you most of your, you know, listeners are 18 or 25, whatever the age is. All that data is there, and it's free. That's the mind-boggling part. I should be charging for that. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But no, it's free for every artist to understand, and because then you make a data-driven decision, which sort of like helps you when you're making a data-driven decision, because you could be sitting in Accra making music from here, and it's great music, but then it picks up in Nairobi. That just informs you like, oh, most of your listeners are listening in Nairobi. Then like maybe I should pack a bag, maybe I should do a media tour in Nairobi. I should go to all the radio stations and TV stations. Maybe I should get a collaboration with one of the artists from Nairobi and stuff like that. And I think that that's essentially what you do to ensure that you sort of like progress and grow as an artist, because also when you're doing collaborations, it's introducing you to new audience, but also introducing you to new sounds and new artists, and very experimental. And I think a lot of artists should, when you come out of studio with a good song and you feel good about it, which is, you know, a great feeling, and you put it out there, you should also monitor who else is listening to it, and how do they feel good about it. Because a lot of people would just be like, yeah, I've put out this song and I want to be big globally, but which part of the world? Like there's so many countries. How about you try where they're listening to you first? Do you get what I mean?
Great, yes.
And then progress from there. Like, and I remember like Yemi Alade, when she dropped Johnny, it was so big in East Africa, so she did like a Swahili version, and she did a French version, and she's like, the people who are loving me, I'm gonna go to them, you know. CK's Love No Titi just was so huge, and he did so many remixes to get it to where it is, you know.
Wow. So if you're listening, I love what she said, data-driven decisions, which is something most of you guys don't do. Techno on beat. Because once a few people are loving it, even in Ghana, look at what's behind it. Who's really listening? Even within Ghana, it's very, very, very important. It is very, very important. a lot of people ask, why did you go? Why do you waste your time in SA? And I keep telling them, because when you look at my back end, about 90% of the music listeners come from there. And so we decided to go to them. So my people, make data-driven decisions. This helps you, one, to invest well. So you don't just throw money away. It directs your investment and you get real returns. And when I say returns, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about just money, because that's all you guys know. But Charlotte, we're just about wrapping up.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this question I want to ask about monetization.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on AudioMac.
Mm-hmm.
I have my stuff on AudioMac. Let's talk about how realistic it is for an independent African artist,
Mm-hmm.
especially because we're in Ghana, where there are a lot of independent artists.
Mm-hmm.
How does an artist like that earn sustainably from a platform like AudioMac?
Artists are earning on AudioMac, right? One thing I always say, like, put your music everywhere
Mm-hmm.
where it's monetizable, not only just AudioMac,
Mhm.
everywhere, so that you can earn an income here, there, multiple streams of income, right? Within Africa itself, Africa has its, challenges. The IFPI report just came out. Africa made about 120 million US dollars in revenue. 70% of that only came from South Africa. So 30% is like, oh, the rest of you, like 54 African countries, like what's happening there, right? And then when you're in the business, you realize there's just a lot of challenges. And the problem has never been that the people don't want to pay. It's in building the systems and infrastructures that enable them to pay on a daily basis.
Wow.
So you figure out, like, oh, I have to integrate with this app and this fintech and this bank and that telco, and I have to integrate with all this, and I have to do all these partnerships on a very high level, so that an individual sitting in Kumasi can pay 2 CDs or 10 CDs for a monthly subscription or for a weekly subscription. For us at AudioMac, we've gone beyond that to just make it very accessible. So now we've got daily subscriptions. You can just pay for the day, you can pay for the week, you can also pay for the month, just so that it gives you flexibility, that we're not going to lock you out because you failed your subscription and stuff like that. But then there's also the advertising market. So it's like the people who are using it on the free tier, with they get a lot of ads, and it's brands spending money on the ads, and so it just also depends on like the revenue that apps like us generate from the brands, and just how much the advertising market or budgets is being spent. So if you look at like South Africa, they have a higher advertising budget compared to somewhere like Ghana. So then you find that because your listeners come from South Africa, you earn more because you're earning from the revenue generated over there than over here. But if your streams come from here a lot more, then you're earning revenue generated from here. If your streams come from the UK, then you're earning revenue that comes from the UK, which is a tier 1 advertising market and stuff like that. So it's a lot of math, it's a lot of like calculation in the back end for us and for a lot of DSPs and stuff like that. And also it just depends on like your economy, how strong the currency is, and in Africa especially, because we're dealing with like multiple currencies as well. It just becomes like a lot of math, basically. But is it sustainable? Yes. And are we seeing growth in Africa? I think we're going to need a lot more people to start paying for music.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I wish we could go on and on and on and on, but unfortunately we don't have the whole evening. I actually exceeded by 9 minutes. Forgive me. My last question. What brings you to Ghana? In fact, that should have been my first question. I'm rude. Forgive me. I'm a fine gentleman. Yes. What brought you to Ghana?
Fufu.
I like that. In fact, if you're around for the weekend, we'll go on a fufu date.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do
it. But yeah, I think Ghana has been such a welcoming country for us as a platform. Lots of people in Ghana use AudioMac, and it's always good to come and shake hands and meet people who behind the industry in Ghana, people who are sustaining it and stuff like that. And we might have a surprise. We might be celebrating a big Ghanaian artist that's doing so well on AudioMac.
That's nice.
And that's going to be news for another day.
Yeah.
But we're super excited to celebrate Ghanaian artists and award them for doing so well. Yeah, like super excited.
Which Ghanaian artists are you listening to now?
Myself?
Yeah.
There's a couple, honestly, but
let's do 5.
Let's do 5. Viola, listening. She's an upcoming
Yes,
act.
Viola. Yes. She's actually a friend.
Oh, is it? Yeah, she makes amazing music. Last Mid. I listen to King Promise as well. That's my guy. I love Jackie. Listening to Wendy Shea as well. Yeah, and then obviously, I'd be remiss if I don't mention the pop star, Black Sheriff.
Nice one. Charlotte, it's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Like I said, I wish we could go on and on. I have lots of questions, and but you've answered the very, very important ones that I wanted you to touch on. Very last question. What would you say is a typical mistake that you see African artists do? Some African artists make.
I think a lot of artists, the mistake they make is thinking that talent is everything. Talent is like 10%.
Yeah.
90% of your success comes from the work behind it, the discipline, the diligence. When people see a big superstar doing the regular like meet and greet and doing the regular press runs, and they think, oh, but you're just welcoming him because he's a big superstar already. Yeah. But the truth is, he's been at it for how long he has been, and so for him, this is work. So showing up to a radio interview, showing up to a meet and greet, showing up to whatever appearance, and doing the actual work, that's something that a lot of artists now take for granted. And they just think, well, my song is viral on TikTok and whatever, and they think, okay, I'm a big superstar now. But no, the discipline is everything. Yeah.
The discipline is everything. That's more than an advice that you can get for free. I mean,
exactly. I get paid for this.
Exactly. Once again, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And we have a fufu date on Saturday.
Exactly.
Tomorrow.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Guys, I've been having a conversation with the VP of AudioMac. It's been a great one, very insightful. I wish we could have a top-up maybe next week, but it would depend. We will talk about it. There's so many things I want us to learn, especially when it comes to industry, because I've been lucky to be on the stage and be off the stage. And so I see a lot of mistakes, and we are crazy about virality, which I try to tell people not to always just look at that. But yeah, we'll get there. I'm so excited that we had this conversation. I will catch you on the flip side, but we're not done yet. The drive is still ongoing. Keep doing the listening.